Herman Manyora, political analyst, is still our guest here. Now, Herman, one of the things that resulted from the Gen Z protests was the disbandment of the cabinet. So the president dissolved his cabinet. He said, I have dissolved the cabinet. Everybody go home, save for Prime Cabinet Secretary Musalia Mudavadi. And then a few days later, he nominated the first batch of 10, and then thereafter he nominated the others. The reaction from the public has been varied. There have been those who have said, no, surely, this whole thing is a sham. There are those that have said, well, yeah, some of these guys who have even been brought back, they performed well, and it's okay, they deserve to be there. The new names that have come in there, they sound like they are good, and maybe we need to give them a chance. The parliamentary committee is due to hand over its report to Parliament. It's expected to do that today, and then MPs will vote on this. But what is your vote? From the moment the president announced the first 10, and then announced again the second 10, and the final 2, what did you make of it?
You know, a vote presupposes they are candidates. So as far as I'm concerned, and from where I sit or stand, there are no candidates. So how do I take a vote on non-existent candidates?
What do you mean?
You see, the whole thing must go back to the dissolution of cabinet. Because I'm one of the people who are on the far front of asking the president to do that. I'm not saying he did because of me, but I'm on record. I even did an open letter to him in my YouTube channel. And the reason why people dissolve cabinet at the times of crisis is to achieve something. It's always a very important step governments take at the point of crisis or instability. You dissolve. You want to send a message. That's why you do so. You are not dissolving cabinet because these guys are not performing. No. You are dissolving cabinet as a way of buying back the public you have lost. Okay? Mm-hmm. So it's a no-brainer that the confidence in the president is at its lowest, if any. Mm-hmm. People don't believe the president. People don't trust him. That is as bad as it can get for any government. So by dissolving cabinet, you are sending a message of hope. First, I have listened to you, I care, and I am prepared to change things. So when you come back with the same sort of people, then how can you ask me that there is a cabinet? There's no cabinet to talk about.
But even as you make nominations of that nature, there are utterances in the public domain. Say, Kwani, what is it that these people want? I have dissolved parliament.
Yes.
I'm sorry, not parliament.
Cabinet.
But it was a nice Freudian slip. Mm-hmm. Okay. Yes.
Yeah.
I have dissolved the cabinet. I have done this. I have done this. Exasperation. I have done so much. Is it an understanding that what they have done, in their opinion, is much? Yes, that is the opinion. It is a lot. But is it enough?
It's not a question of, I started by saying, it's not a question of their competences.
Yes.
At that point when you are dissolving cabinet, it's not about them performing or not performing. It's not about looking at who between those who are there did better. No. Mm. It is a movement to assuage the public. It is a movement to show the public that you feel them, you understand. Okay?
Yes.
And you want to take action. You want to change. Mm. It's not going to be business as usual from now onwards. That is what it means to dissolve cabinet. Some kind of shock therapy. You get it?
Yes.
So then it ceases to be that the moment you return them back. You cannot return them back.
In fact, it is
not in our circumstances. The circumstances under which cabinet was dissolved would rule out completely returning even one of them back to cabinet, irrespective of how good they were. But in any case, I am not seeing anybody competent in that cabinet.
Even the new trend.
There may be one or two people who you could give a chance to, one or two people. But the circumstances under which they have entered cabinet, when public confidence is at its lowest, when public has no trust in government, what assurance do I have my friend Okoh and I will perform? under those circumstances. But because public confidence is very important in public affairs. You get it? You require public confidence for you to deliver. So if the public doesn't have confidence in you. Secondly, how sure am I that the president will give these guys room to perform? Let's just isolate one.
Okay.
How sure are you it is Mbadi who will be running the
Treasury.
Why?
If you ask me, I'll say I don't see it happening.
Are you saying Njuguna Ndung'u was not running the treasury?
He wasn't.
Who was?
Some people would be running. So you'll find out homework. I'm a teacher. I give homework. Enda fanya hii homework. Wakati watu walikuwa wanafanya budget treasury wakati ya Uhuru. Wewe unafikiri walikuwa wanafanyia budget hapo treasury? So I can't see how Mbadi can influence policy at the treasury. How can he? I can't see it. How?
The fact that you can't see doesn't mean you can't, does it?
He will not. We understand this country, my friend. Oh, we know this country.
So then
But let him surprise us.
So it didn't matter whether the president had brought a whole new batch of 22 new members to his cabinet.
Now that we know, we are now mixing two things.
We would not be sure whether those other external forces
Let's
would
not
still
mix
be
two
running.
things. We are mixing two things. One is we are now talking about capacity. We had moved from the dissolution as a move, as a political move. We have now come to the technical aspect of capacity. Then I'm doubting whether any of them has capacity.
They have the capacity.
And even for the few who have, whether under the arrangement they are in, like those ODM people, they can actually perform. Now, when it comes to a new set of cabinet, it was going to achieve a political purpose. Okay? To convince the country that the president is serious. As to whether they would in the end perform or not, that will be another story. Because for you to perform, you must be given what is required for you to perform. In fact, from the word go, you must see the appointing authority as serious, as wanting you to work and perform. But many people are given assignments, and from the word go, you know, nobody intends that you perform anything. We kula mshahara, chukua allowances, na uende nyumbani.
Safiri.
Umeona watu wameenda EACC kama kina PLO. Wanafika huko wanajaribu kujifanya ati we want to be MPs, vet them, sijui wale wame false mileage. Wanawambia we didn't bring you here to work. Go home. That plays it out in many of these other places. That you are appointed not to work. So those are the things we must now change.
So then, that means that on that one score, you, in your opinion, the president missed the mark.
Missed it by a wide margin.
Oh.
He needed to make the political score. Then these other issues he can deal with.
There's an argument, Manyora,
that
he actually made the political score.
He didn't. How?
That by this so-called broad-based government, by bringing the one person that he knows who has the capacity to snap a finger like this and mobilize, by having him pacified, and the political party that he leads also, sitting and they're making noise, but there's nothing much they can do. He has scored. And that's why he's now going around the country. He was at the coast. Now today he's going to central Mount Kenya. He has been there before. He's traveling around the country. And when he goes to that part of the country, people are welcoming and cheering him. I was asking this question the other day. Do you think this, pushback, the president missed the point, the president is tone deaf, the president... Do you think it's just an elitist conversation, an urban elitist conversation?
Sometimes, yes.
But in rural Kenya, people actually they're looking at these guys and they think, well, yeah, it's fine.
Let's start with scoring. And because CT Muga is a
teacher,
comes from the community where people sleep and eat football. Let's talk about scoring. CT Muga may not be as old as I am, but he must have been there when we had a man called Lidonde. Not the original Lidonde. The one who used to be told like akipewa penalty goalkeeper anasema
anaondoka.
Yes. Not that one.
Anatoboa net.
Tony Lidonde, you know him?
Yes.
Not Elijah.
Yeah. FC and later, before that, later, I think Abaluya. He played with Abaluya briefly, I think, but mainly FC.
Abaluya Football Club.
If he was not fielded, girls will kill the club manager, what you call them coaches. I'm not a football fan. And then it got to a point where when AFC is not scoring and is losing, he's anapelekwa ndani, like pretty much like Roger Miller.
Yes.
You remember?
Yes.
Popular crowd demand. And somehow they would score. Somehow they would change things. Roger Miller, remember? And then Tony Lidonde.
In fact, in Miller's case, it is the president.
Yes, who says, put that man down.
And Miller was 40 years old at that time. Yes.
But it gets to a point, even that Roger Miller or Tony Lidonde, he can't even carry his weight. So it won't make a difference. That's why people like Raila are. Not by virtue of age, but the way they have played the game, they have come out badly.
Have they always come out badly, or is it now?
Now, they have survived the game for a while, but he has gotten to a point where they won't add much value. So if you are thinking by bringing Raila on board, you are safe. Then you are also have very bad news for you. It won't work for you. In fact, people just laugh at it. I was conducting some business in Kisumu last weekend, and take it from me,
There's disquiet.
Not many people are convinced Raila has taken the right.
I want to ask you again. So
not many.
The direct question, Herman,
Yes.
is this disquiet, is it popular?
Popular to mean that there are many people who are not happy?
Yes.
Of course. Of course.
Is it that a majority are not happy, or
Let us separate two things.
there are many people who are not happy,
Let us separate two
but
things.
a majority are silent, but they're happy, they're okay with either way?
Let us separate two things. Genuine concern that we are not doing well, leading to unhappiness and even anger, and voting perhaps as a result of the same. These two things are different. But if the concern, the unhappiness, the anger were to decide the voting, Ruto and Raila on one ticket cannot get 30% of Kenyan votes. So that's the mood in the country. It's that bad. However, when it comes to voting, other factors come into play. So we are aware of that. But if you are asking me whether Kenyans are genuinely unhappy or happy, the simple answer from the villages of this country, including where the president comes from, including where Raila comes from. Yesterday on television, I don't know which station, I rarely watch TV, there were boys moving in Kapsabet with those famous mipini, what do we call them in English, the long batons, those rungus, the ones for the djembe. They have become a uniform. They were in Eldoret, Kapsabet, Kakamega, and I think somewhere else. But there were people, more than them, condemning that and ready to fight them. You get it?
Yes.
Yet this is where the president comes from. They may have been talking about the governor. The same was in Kericho. You would have been surprised. I'm sure you must have been surprised at the reception of the Gen Z thing in Kericho, places like Kericho and Eldoret. And I took time to look at the crowds in Eldoret. Because one will be easy to dismiss that those people demonstrating in Eldoret during the Gen Z revolution were not the president's people.
Because
it was not true.
Because Eldoret is cosmopolitan.
Yeah, that's what people say. Maybe they were Kikuyus, they were Lus, they were not. The overwhelming number of the demonstrators were young men and women from that community. So you get it. That should lead you to conclude, Eric, that people are not happy with what people can see things are not right.
Okay.
As to whether they can use that anger in 2027
to drive change.
That is a different story. Because we live in this country and we know people can be very rational. Someone like Muga here can speak very good English and come up with very good discourse about this country. But when he retires into that booth, he becomes a Luo.
My voting patterns have nothing to do with my education.
Yeah, you see?
Absolutely nothing.
That's where the problem now is.
You go to your blood.
But now, that's now the danger. You see, the danger now is CT.
Yes.
That because left on the dictates of democracy that will result into an election, people may not necessarily get change. This is now how I would advise the government. This is how people, opportunists, can take advantage of the situation. for their own, towards their own end. People who know if they were to face Ruto and perhaps Raila, they may not succeed. You know, they can harness this revolution to their end. And that's why sometimes we have already said here that some of these revolutions end up producing nothing in terms of leadership, and therefore bringing no desirable change.
I want to take you back to the end of the era of the Moi government, after the president then had handed over power to Kibaki.
Yes.
And was driving out of Uhuru Park, and people threw mud at him.
I was right there.
You were there?
When history was being made, I was there.
Yes, exactly. Now, in the time when Moi was the president, I don't think anyone would have dared even conjure the thought that they would throw anything at his.
But they did it that time.
On that particular day, they did.
Yes.
Because they knew he was no longer in power.
Yes.
In my mind, it is instructive. It's instructive in this sense. There were people who are tired of that government.
Yes.
And probably the numbers were many, because if you look at the crowd that was there that day, it also told you a story.
Yes.
Okay? Numbers that people could say had never been seen before.
Yes.
Now, when we hear, when we read, when we see people, predominantly young, youthful people coming out, and the message seems to be the same.
Yes.
It's a manifestation of the same. The only difference is that this president is still in power. He has not left.
Yes.
So nothing is being done upon his departure. Let me go back to the question I asked. In full view of the entire world, with an intelligence service that informs you in greater details about these things, yet we see the questions Eric and his two compadres asked when they went for the interview. What is it that makes people, because it's not now one person, miss all this? You're seeing it. It is clear. Things that you never thought would happen, they're happening. We're not accustomed to presidents being told off in public. We are seeing it. We're not accustomed to presidents being booed in public. You're seeing it. Because there was a build-up. Yes. It didn't happen. There was all this build-up. You happen to be in power, conjoining powers, you still don't see it. That really is what bothers me.
No, it shouldn't bother you. Look, you can explain it. First, power, we have said here, can completely confuse many people. It takes a very strong character to handle power or success. You've seen people running across the field, Boston Marathon, they make millions, and these dollars destroy them. Handling money. Handling success is not easy. So you can explain it by way of just what power would do to an individual. Secondly, when people are fighting to get to power, they are supported by people. The people who support people to become presidents or prime ministers don't do it because they love them. They do it because they have interest to pursue. And they can also leverage on their power to ensure you deliver on what you promised. It's not like you can get there and forget. If they want business, if they are the ones bringing Adani to do the airport, you can't deny them. And they have the dollar. So that's another reason. Another reason is the simple one of looking at the next election. And therefore, there are those things you can do and those you must avoid if you are going to win the next election. But the bigger problem, like I've said this morning, we live at times when there are powerful forces across the world, domiciled in Europe and America especially, bit of it even in China, out to dominate the world, out to recolonize the world, out to destroy the world in the way we know it today, and even people with experiments on human beings. You know, they are powerful people. We don't need to mention them. They'll come and sue KTN, Standard Group, and you know the things they are doing, including things like GMO and in the health sector, all manner of things. Sometimes you have had their support to gate power. Sometimes, and I'm not talking about Uhuru Kenyatta, Ruto, or Jomo Kenyatta, or Kibaki, or Moi. I'm just talking, and I'm not even talking about Kenya. Sometimes it's good to have a powerful man in charge of a country.
What powerful means?
Where powerful means he can stand on his own. A man who requires little support from outside to win an election. A man who has an organic support of the people. Such a man these forces may find it a little harder to manipulate. But when you have people ascending to power because of the support of these forces, I want to call them evil forces, I think then the country is in trouble. He has to play ball. First, to ensure he remains in power. 2, to get re-elected. But 3, even to be safe. There are some people you don't double cross.
Herman Manyora, political analyst, is our guest this morning. We are looking at the goings on in the country, the CS vetting. We expect the parliamentary committee to table its report today. Tomorrow is Nane Nane. The youth have said they want to come out again onto the streets tomorrow. Nane Nane, another round of demonstrations. How safe are they? What are the security measures? The acting IG of police says we are prepared. If they are peaceful, there will be peace. If there are any elements that are not peaceful, we will deal with them accordingly. What does all this mean to the country? The acting Inspector General of Police yesterday held a press briefing and he said, we are prepared, we've made adequate arrangements to ensure safety. Safety of the protesters, safety of businesses, and safety of everybody around. It so happens that the last time there was this kind of skirmishes, the U.S. Secretary of State had a phone conversation with the president. And the statement that came out of that was that, they discussed and they said, protect the safety and guarantee the safety and security of the protesters. And of course, your laws and your constitution that allows picketing. It's good for that to happen. Coincidentally, yesterday, at the DCI headquarters, the U.S. Undersecretary for Civilian Security, Democracy and Human Rights was in the country, and he was meeting with the DCI boss, Mohammed Amin. The U.S. Department of State Undersecretary for Civilian Security, Democracy and Human Rights, Uzra Zeya, has paid a courtesy call on the director of DCI, Mohammed Amin, in his office at the DCI headquarters. He was accompanied by the U.S. Ambassador to Kenya, Meg Whitman, and they encouraged the DCI to continue sustaining the fight against corruption to ensure provision of services in strict observance to human rights and the rule of law for a safe and secure society. Amin registered appreciation to the U.S. government through its embassy for the support being given to DCI through various partnerships, including support for investigations and prosecution of cases of gender-based violence, of course, everything else apart from demonstrations and the current goings on. That is what the DCI, of course, reported. But I'd expect that they discussed, response, maybe concerns being raised that units coming out of DCI are involved in abductions. This person is responsible for civilian security, human rights, democracy.
Americans know how to play their game. First, they know what is going on in the world. They could not even have been surprised with what happened in Bangladesh, and they are never surprised. They know what's going on. So you can read this whichever way you want. One, they could be genuine and be advising government, looking at what's going on around the world. The approach you are using will make situations worse. For every one person you kill, you bring into the movement tens of thousands who would not have been there. You create more anger. For every one abduction, and with the social media and the way these things are profiled in the media, you bring into the movement, into this anger movement, tens and tens of thousands of people who would have had nothing to do with the demonstrations and even what's going around them. So Americans are aware of that, and they may be telling government, look here, if you continue like this, you'll create more anger than you can handle. And when it gets to a time when you have 200,000 people marching in Nairobi streets, it will be the end of you. They could be sharing this information genuinely.
Do you read something? When at the height of the demonstrations,
yes,
and this is coming after the state visit by the president, And then the kind of media coverage that, this is a president who had a state visit, had been accorded this honor, first time for an African president in 15 years, and this and the other. So Americans have been supporting him. And now there's a popular uprising against his administration. Secretary of State calls, and it's made public that they discussed the issue of, security. Cabinet vetting begins. The U.S. Embassy in Nairobi releases a statement and says, as the vetting begins, we encourage Parliament to ensure that the issue of integrity is primary as they are vetting. And then now, the Undersecretary in charge of human rights, democracy, and civilian security is in the country ahead of Nane and meeting with police bosses. Do you read?
That's what I'm saying. I was saying there are two ways, according, and maybe more, but for me, two. One is genuine to help a friend. Look here. Look at integrity when vetting me. Genuinely concerned. Handle the demonstrators with some respect and follow the rule of law. Follow your own constitution that allows for these demonstrations. Avoid police abductions and brutality. From a genuine friend. Okay? But Americans also know their game. They could be seeing where this thing is going and trying to distance themselves from the current administration. And that's why you are saying they are making these things known to the public. So that whichever way the thing goes, they say, we are your friends. At the right time, we told you, you can now see. So they will remain your friends perpetually. Because even as they were receiving the head of state from Kenya, you mean they didn't know these things were happening? The level of intelligence they have is so high. They knew there are human rights violations. They knew all these things were there. They knew corruption was there. This cabinet hasn't just happened. They were there. People were flashing millions of shillings when Ruto was in the States. Even the way the people who went with him, even the delegation alone. You mean they were blind to that? They saw that. So this one could be a genuine friend telling you it's getting too much. Take care. It could also be huyu sasa mimi wacha nijitenge na yeye should kama katanuka.
Pilato.
That's like, me have nothing to do with this guy. And that's why I think we need to look for the bottom line. We are our own keepers and minders. We don't need America to come and tell us how to behave well. We must learn to behave well. You don't need your neighbor to tell you to feed your children, do you? How do you get to a point where your neighbors must come to tell you, the way we see these children, they have not eaten. So we cannot allow situations where foreigners like Americans will be the ones to tell us not to kill our children in the streets, not to abduct people, but not to vet and pass nominees who are tainted with corruption. We should do it ourselves. This is just bad manners which we must abandon.
You see, the Americans do it because those in their country who are in political leadership are held to account by the electorate. And they know it.
They know it.
You will not get away with it.
Yes.
Because
that's them.
That's them. The question will be, why are you supporting this person? And they have this record. Questions will be asked.
Correct.
So when they come visiting, and they make it public. How many times do visitors come in and we don't know they have come?
Yes.
We might know they have gone. But this one is being made public.
Public, yes.
So this is deliberate.
Even for their own consumption of their own people.
Yes, this is what we have done. This is where we have gone.
Yes.
So please, and it's in bright light so that you are flashing light. So you
even with an election around the corner.
Yes, exactly.
How do we trust you? You can take care of America in terms of democracy, human rights, when you are supporting people elsewhere.
Yes.
It's always featuring in American elections.
A leadership such as the one we have is titled very well by the West. They understand it and they have names for it.
Yes.
Okay? You mentioned Bangladesh. If you read what was in social media and what was being said, it is also said that these same Americans spoke to the Prime Minister and said, Madam, this thing, wewe, toka. Because it is said she was not listening to anybody. She was telling the police, hammer these guys more. She was telling her special unit, hammer. The military said, no, this we're not going to do. This one we're not going to do. Remember, it is said also that the leader of the military, the head of the military, is married to her cousin. Okay? So all I'm saying is, with all these things happening, and you are a superpower, and the only way you prove you're a superpower is because your sphere of influence is broad.
Yes.
And when you move in a certain direction, you're listened to. Now, this is where I want to make my point. The Americans know how to look after their interest.
Correct.
Why is it that we can't look after our interest?
That's the question I'm saying. Why do we need a foreigner to tell us how to behave?
We know what we need. We know what we need.
I like Kenya because our problems are very simple, very minor. It is just bad manners. I'm telling you, if we stop bad manners in this country, if our politicians stop behaving badly, you keep talking of South Korea, you talk of Singapore, those will be children before us. We will be soaring in the skies because we have everything for takeoff. The conditions for takeoff have always existed in this country. You can't say that of many countries.
No.
So it's just bad manners. It's just doing what we have been discussing the whole morning today. Why can't these people do the simple things they are being asked to do? What is so difficult in doing these small things? There's nothing difficult.
There's something called a competing interest.
Yes.
Because on the one hand, when you hear our political leadership speaking,
yes,
many a time they're very convincing. You feel, okay, this time we're going to see something. But what they don't talk about is what the other competing interest is. And the competing interest is to get rich very quickly.
Yes.
Okay?
Yes.
Now, that cuts across and goes against the grain of anything that may actually genuinely help the citizenry and may actually take care of those of our population, those of our citizenry who actually need that help.
Until such a time money ceases to be what it is in this country, there will be no progress.
True.
Because money is the focal point. Everything rotates around money. Eric Latiff may be a very smart young man, speaks good English, seems to have ideas. But when he leaves the studio and boards a matatu, nobody will listen to him. They want to see the sort of animal you are driving and the home you are going to park that animal. Then people can listen to you. So until we get to a point where we know money is a medium of whatever you call it, for exchange,
Yes, it is a medium of exchange.
That's what just it is. To give you what you need.
Yes.
It has no other value. So we are giving money value doesn't have. So if we don't get beyond money in this country, we will never get quality leadership. We'll never get anything. So we must handle the issue of money. And if I was the president, I will have a clear program of doing that. First of all, people steal in this country and people need money, not just because it gives them social status, because also it is sometimes necessity. Corruption is an industry, which if you close today, many of these things will close. These high-cost schools will close, all of them. If you are able to strangle corruption and theft. These shule kubwa zitafungwa, these nice clubs where people buy a soda at 5, zitafungwa zote. These big vehicles, the people selling these big vehicles, they will have nobody to sell to because it is an industry. But it also comes because there is need for that money. So a good president will have to go a good party seeking power would have to go in the way of a welfare state. A welfare state then means there will be free quality education. There will be free quality healthcare. Free. You just, akuna shifu, akuna NH, akuna, you just go in. You are a Kenyan. That's all that's required. And you are treated, you get the best treatment, you go home. If you are admitted, free, you leave. Nobody asks you for any shilling. And then there will be policies on health, on housing, that will make Kenyans live in decent houses, affordably. There will be policy on transport, so that those welfare aspects, once you cater for those as a country, the need to steal money begins to go down. You see, the ordinary men and women who do ordinary stealing will find it unnecessary. Because they are squeezed into corners from where if you offer them, I know you must have read No Longer at Ease.
I did.
When Okoh now is faced with the worst, this girl must have procured an abortion and it cost money and he had nothing. He had to take a bribe. You get that? Sometimes those situations arise. And therefore you must close those avenues by making Kenya a welfare state. It's not difficult to provide free education and free healthcare because all you need to do is stop corruption, stop theft of public funds. And there's enough money to do that. So it will affect everything else. And until you deal with what money means to Kenyans, and of course there will be other issues you'll take. For example, the country must go completely electronic. There should be nowhere where people are doing cash transactions. We live in a country where you can buy my house, Muga, and give me cash, 400 million. I wish I had such a house, by the way. You know, if you came to buy my house, I escorted a guy. I was a friend of mine. He wanted to sell a house in Muthaiga. All buyers, and some of them were governments wanting to buy as embassies. All buyers wanted to deal in nothing but cash. Cash.
So that amount of money, you do need a pickup or something, don't you?
So, you come in dollars. They say in dollars.
Or
so
if it's in dollars, then the boot of your big car can suffice.
So, that tells you one way of taming theft and corruption in the country is to put systems so that there is nothing you can buy in this country and transfer to your name. If the money for buying does not come from the bank and it does not reflect at Times Towers. So you buy my car, at the point of transfer, the money you pay me must be electronically paid with my PIN and your PIN. And that transaction reflects at the taxman's office at where? Times Tower. These are the small things we can do to deal with this theft. But the people in charge benefit from the theft, so they cannot put those measures in place. But a host of them are also not with the capacity to think in that direction. Yeah.
You know, what you just said, must look for somebody who actually understands this and who comes from a country where they've done these things, and so that we know how it has worked. But it does.
It does, yeah.
It's like how automation works, where you reduce and you minimize the point of extinguishing the human participation in that process.
Yes.
Apart from probably switching a button and doing this. Yes. You see, you are right when you say that so long as fundamental services are unavailable to people, and so long as people have to struggle to pay for things which are fundamental, like education, like healthcare,
housing, and so on.
Yes. What you've then done is you've opened the door for corruption to thrive.
So you must deal with that first.
Yes. You're right.
Before you tell people to stop stealing.
Yes.
You must make life livable and bearable.
Yes. So so this great need to steal will not be there.
So if I was at Treasury, for example, and I'm body, within 6 months I'll come up with measures that will reduce corruption by significant margins. I'll make it very difficult for people to transact certain businesses. I'll work with the DCI. In fact, DCI has a problem fighting crime because when people steal money, they just go and spend it.
Yes.
In other jurisdiction, utapatikana kwanza in the way you are spending. Unaenda kununua gari na cash. Watu wanakuzia gari wamepigia DCI simu.
Ati kuna mtu amekuja hapa na cash.
You be having something against this guy here. This guy is coming with $200,000.
But Herman, there are many regulations that try to contain that, to control that.
Not the regulation in the manner in which you are saying.
Because
regulation if you in a technical manner.
If you went to, let's say, you came and I bought you a vehicle and, or a house, like you're saying, and you give me 30 million shillings in cash.
Yes.
I'd have to have very many long explanations when I'm going to try and deposit that money.
Which explanations?
The bank will ask me, so what's the source of this? Letter documentation.
The
source of 30 million shillings and all these things.
That is a joke.
See? So what else would you do? If
that is a joke. It must be electronically controlled.
What is that?
The payment you received must be electronic.
You're saying abolish cash transactions?
Yes.
Boss.
If I'm buying your car at 3 million, I know the cars you drive, the one you want to dispose of on account of age will be 3-4 million. I shouldn't go to my pocket and pay you. It's my bank paying your bank, and your PIN is there, my PIN is there. That transaction reflects at DCI for purposes of crime. There's a desk there. That transaction reflects at KRA for purposes of tax and so on and so forth. That even helps us to fight crime and minimize theft. Because money you have stolen.
So what are you saying?
If you steal 30 million, if you steal 5 million,
those regulations are already there.
If you steal 5 million today, where you work, and you want to buy a car, there's nothing to stop you because you'll bring it to me. I give you my car.
Yes, but then you will need to deposit it.
Who says I must deposit?
Okay.
I'll also go and buy a piece of land in Luombe where I come from.
There you
In
go.
cash.
And in cash.
There you
So,
go. You
you
see,
see,
Herman, the laws are there. But as long as you and I are okay with it.
You are missing
Because
you
you're
are
the one
missing
who
the
accepts
point.
to take.
You are missing the point. I don't
Everybody-
want to depend on the goodwill of human beings. I'm just giving you a simple illustration. You are selling your car at 3 million. I want to buy it. I must pay the money by cash.
Or
Money
else
by
what?
electronical to you.
Or else what? That is already there.
Or else I don't buy.
And I'm telling
But today
you,
I can pay it by cash.
Herman,
Yes.
it's there. By saying that you must explain if you deposit anything
Who
more
tells
than
you I must
10
display-
the law.
The law doesn't say
You
must.
must explain
Does
when
the
you
law
pay.
stop you from having money under your mattress?
No, it doesn't.
Muga,
but,
does it?
but it says when you're going to transact in a bank,
Yes.
anything above 10,000 USD,
Now they have increased to
You
about
must-
20,000.
they increased-
About
yeah.
15,000.
15,000
It's
USD,
20 it's
you
about
must
2.2 million
explain.
shillings now, yeah.
You must explain.
Yes.
You see, that is now trying to deal with it at that end.
Yes.
But you and I, if you accepted to take cash
Yes.
from me, and I'm the one who's dealing this, and I'm giving you cash, it doesn't matter what kind of law you put in place.
But I want to
I'm
I'm saying there should be no situations allowing me to buy cash.
So you're
That's
banning cash.
Then I won't transfer the car. You get what I'm saying? Transferring the car or the house should be impossible if I paid cash. I must have paid through the bank.
It'll always
And
be.
the questions, now those questions will be important. You get it? That's just one. And there will be a host of others. And because we are not thinking here, here we're just picking on top of our head.
Yeah.
If we give people to think on a table, to lay an infrastructure to make that possible, a technical infrastructure. Like Kidero came to power in City Hall. Is that you remember?
I recall.
When Kidero came to power in 2013, City Hall, when he became governor,
Yes.
he just put a few measures in place and people were surprised the kind of money that we were able to collect in a day at City Hall. Do you remember that? Yeah. So those are some of the things I'm saying. A simple measure of digitally collecting revenue at City Hall by Kidero.
You know,
Brought in money here has not been surpassed up to now.
you know the point that Eric is making, and which is valid,
Yes.
is that yes, the human element in all these systems,
Yes.
unless we can find a way of completely curbing it, will always run interference, because people who understand systems will even craft it to suit their benefit, or to suit their purposes rather, not benefits. So, as you say, there are people who are competent to look at all these things that we're discussing and, more,
put things in place.
and
measures.
say, no, okay. The
But
human
it can't
element-
work in isolation. We must have a functional judiciary which will deal with violators expeditiously.
Are you suggesting we don't have one?
I have some little reservation, but
Little.
you know, you can find yourself before those men and women, so we can only whisper. You know, they are human beings after all.
There
No, Manyora ndio yule anasemanga there's no judiciary.
Umekuja leo.
There amejileta.
Okay, thank you.
Tena wanaambiana wakitoka huko ndani ya
Ati
chamber.
amekuja.
As they are coming in those gowns. Say, oh,
Amekuja.
Huyu ni ule Manyora. Ndio huyu.
so let's just whisper.
Herman, thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you too.
And for this conversation. Thank you for tuning in to the biggest conversation in the country from wherever you are. Again, a message to those in Lebanon. The Ministry of Foreign Affairs says, please, you need to evacuate. They are providing that assistance. Those in the UK, the embassy in the UK has said, all right, please register. Please be safe. Please follow what you're being told. And we wish you all the best. We want to see peace in the UK. Kenyans are concerned about the goings on in the UK.
Na tutume salamu. Waluya wamesema ni wasalamia. Na salamu ni nusu ya kuonana.
Bas.
Kwa hivyo Angela amepata salamu na ni nusu ya kuonana.
Very good. Wote wasalimiwe. Have a lovely day.
Sana Waluya.
Tomorrow is 9/9. We pray for peace and
Don't
peaceful.
keep talking of Nanenana as if it's something we want to look forward to.
No.
I would
People are
rather
look-
some media house will
People are
say,
looking forward to it.
say Nanenane should be avoided by those in leadership doing the sort of things they need to do to avoid situations like those. That's how we end this show.
Okay.
And thank you.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.